Hello, I'm Nick Simon from Nottingham. Well, last year the Conservatives had the conference in Manchester, and I went there as a Conservative Party member. And I attended a fringe meeting by the Bruges group. I'm in the Bruges group, and I went to a meeting about the benefits of Brexit. And I went to the meeting with my friends Bruce and John, and we were sat not far from the front, to be honest. The panel were assembled, and there was a good panel. I believe one of them, from memory, one of them was Lord Daniel Hannan, who is a super clever guy and an incredibly articulate speaker. I've witnessed him speak on many occasions, and it's always fascinating. So we were very near the front, waiting for the speakers to start. Everybody was sat there and ready to go, but it hadn't quite started. Suddenly, at the front, almost as an apparition, Steve Bray appeared. Now, you might know Steve Bray. He's the complete buffoon character with the megaphone that is constantly standing outside Parliament in a big blue hat and a blue jacket covered in EU stickers. And when reporters are trying to do their interviews and they're putting their reports, he's constantly in the background with banners, trying to get himself on TV, trying to publicise himself. He's a complete moron, and he's on with his megaphone all day, yawping, "Stop Brexit!" I don't know whether anybody's actually told him that Brexit's already happened, but, you know, he's clearly not somebody of... He's clearly challenged in the area of IQ. He's cerebrally challenged. He's just not got anything to offer except sound bites, and I don't think he even understands his own sound bites. Anyway, Steve Bray appeared at the front, and he started challenging the startled panel. What's the benefits of Brexit? Well, anyway, the whole thing was absolutely shocking. He was clearly there to try and disrupt the meeting. And unbeknown to us at the time, he'd got a cohort at the back filming, just wanting to film him to put it on social media and, you know, try and disrupt the whole meeting. He was there to disrupt the meeting. Well, my mate Bruce was on the row in front of me, or a couple of rows in front of me, I can't remember. And he decided right from the word go, I'm not having this. And he just got up and he went and confronted Steve Bray, and a scuffle broke out between the two. And I thought to myself, after, you know, I was also startled, I think we all were, but I thought, well, I'm not having this either. So shortly after Bruce, I got up, came in behind him, got a very strong arm round Bray, and very heavy duty had now arrived. And I very forcefully urged him, I think the words were, "Get out!" Strongly urged him to get out. So with two of us there, he was straight away on the back foot. The officials rushed in, and he was promptly ejected from the meeting, shouting on his way out, "What's the benefits of Brexit?" He'd obviously practiced that line. Excuse me. So anyway, he was ejected before the meeting had even started. He was unable to spoil it, so that was absolutely brilliant. But it got me thinking, what are the benefits of Brexit? So let's just give a couple of examples. Well, the AUKUS deal that we've signed with Australia and the US is something that we could not have signed while we're in the European Union. The AUKUS deal means that the UK and the US is supplying Australia with nuclear-powered submarines. Let me say that correctly. Nuclear-powered submarines. Multi-billion-pound deal. Obviously, British workers and American workers will benefit from that, as will the companies providing the high-tech nuclear-powered submarines. They were actually going to have French diesel submarines, but our far better ones are now going to be supplied to protect Australia in the Pacific Rim from obviously the very serious and very worrying threat of China. So that's a huge deal that will benefit Britain and benefit the US. The other example, well, one other example that I could give is that we would not be able to, as a member of the EU, we would not be able to have signed up to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP. Now, the Ramonas will scoff and they'll say it's like it's only going to generate 1% of GDP or something like that. But I'll tell you this now. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, the countries in the Pacific Rim, these are countries with high populations and high growth. And I'll promise you this now, in 50 years' time, the Pacific Rim will be leading global trade. And you're either in the trading deal with them or you're not. Now, we are in it. We're in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We're in the CPTPP, which we've been able to do because of Brexit. France, Germany, Italy, Spain cannot become part of that massive trading bloc because they are stuck in the sclerotic EU. Now, only the other day we've signed many trade deals already with countries all over the world, which we were not allowed to do when we were in the EU. Only the other day we signed one with Texas. Now, Texas has got an economy almost as big as the UK, so this is not to be sniffed at. We have signed several trade deals with several US states, and it's got to be a good thing. Now, if Donald J. Trump had stayed in power, we would have obviously had a massive UK-US trade deal. But Donald Trump will be back as president later in the year. So, I mean, all is not lost on that front. But in the meantime, we're signing some truly great trade deals with independent states. But benefits of Brexit, we are, of course, now very much as far as possible, once again, what we should be, which is an independent, sovereign nation, able to go our own way and able to sign trade deals as much as we like. We're not in the EU, which is something like 6.4 trillion of debt. So we're not tied to the EU. We're not tied to and having to maintain 6.4 trillion of debt. The EU countries are tied, many of them are tied into the euro currency, which was an absolute disaster. The Mediterranean countries, France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and certainly Greece, they're all in debt traps. They're unable to grow their way out of their debt. They used to be able to before they joined the euro currency. The euro currency was an absolute disaster. It's totally uncompetitive, and it's trapped those Mediterranean countries into debt traps, and Greece is obviously insolvent. But, you know, we're not in that. We're free from the deadpan Eurozone. We're free from the massive debt. The European Union is doing far worse than us in terms of recessions. And also, the European Union has far worse problems with out-of-control immigration than we do. And that's not helped by their financial situation and their extreme indebtedness. So, you know, the benefits of Brexit, you can talk about the positives along the lines of signing trade deals and being in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But a lot of the benefits of Brexit are actually the fact that they're the members of the European Union are in a far worse situation than us. And we've escaped that by regaining our independence and leaving the European Union. So there are indeed fantastic benefits of Brexit. Many of them are to come. Don't forget that when we left the European Union, and I was there in Parliament Square celebrating that. Within a couple of months, we were plunged into the COVID lockdown, which meant that we had to, what it meant that we did do was Rishi Sunak brought in this furlough scheme that paid people to be at home. That cost this country billions, and obviously US quantitative easing to cope with their COVID situation created worldwide inflation. And then when Biden came in the US, when he won the presidential election in the US, he promptly withdrew US forces in a totally catastrophic way from Afghanistan, which showed intense weakness. And the Russians obviously decided that the West is weak as a result of Biden's capitulation from Afghanistan. They then promptly invaded Ukraine. So I believe that if Donald J. Trump had stayed in power in the US, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. But Russia did invade Ukraine, and as a result, you've got increases in oil and gas prices and everything that's fueling the inflation and fueling the cost of living crisis. And I know people in this country are suffering from the cost of living crisis, but it's far worse for those in Europe and in the European Union. So there are great benefits of Brexit, but there are much greater benefits to see. So the next time you see Steve Bray in the background when a reporter's trying to do the job in Parliament Square and he's there with his stupid hat on, you just want to look at him and go, well, you don't really understand the situation, Steve. You're clearly not clever. Basically, you're just a clown.